Hello, hello. I about lost track of time. I'm like, oh, I can multitask. Yeah, right. I multitask and then I lose track of time. Oh well. All right, we're just gonna kind of let the notification get out there and get it going. I am sure I'm getting buried or deleted. Um, it's a certain thing nowadays, right? Mama Karen, Mama Lisa, good to see you both. Um, yeah, I was just saying, I'm like, I thought I could multitask. That's funny. Um, anyway, hey, Twin Crier, good to see you. Is the music too loud? I think someone had messaged me about the last one I did. I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot to turn the volume down on my music before I started, and I think it was kind of hard to hear me talking over it. Anyway, so I'm just kind of been like, okay, Lord, what do you want me to talk about? Hi, Mildred. And the first thing, it just kind of caught me by surprise because he's like, I want you to do announcements. I'm like, I'm not good at announcements. I don't want to talk about that stuff, but I'm going to be obedient because that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today. Kind of, sort of. So I just kind of, what the Lord was just kind of showing me is like, you know what? You've never really introduced yourself on here and you never really have talked about how to connect and so on and so forth. And obviously, y'all have connected with me somehow. But I wanted to invite you, I do have a website and a lot of that, hey, Linda, and a lot of the stuff on my website, it's, like archived like blog posts. Cause I used to do a lot more writing, than I have been. I think the Lord's going to kind of pull me into that again. Hey, Rebecca, good to see you too, sweetheart. So just kind of inviting, I guess there's something on there that the Lord wants y'all to see. I don't know what that is specifically for each of you, but there are some, old broadcasts and, I've got more on my YouTube channel and all that fun stuff. And then there's like a little blurb that I really struggled to write about me and all of that stuff. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to put that out there. And I do have like an events tab, and then you can sign up to receive emails. I do not flood your email inbox with all kinds of craziness. It might be once a week. I'll send an email out and just kind of give you a heads up of things that have gone on, whether it was a broadcast or whatever. And then any upcoming events that I know of that I support or am a part of or whatever, and just kind of, introduce you guys to other people. And so that kind of ties into what I wanted to also share. I'm doing this bi-weekly broadcast. I did it in March and then we skipped over April just because schedules, because time with family and all of this stuff was a lot more important. But I'm doing these bi-weekly broadcasts with my girlfriend, Veronica McDonald. She is very quickly becoming a very solid part of my life. And she lives in Western Australia, and she's been doing ministry for quite some time. But we've been doing a bi-weekly, as she calls it, fortnightly. I love how she says it. It's a broadcast called Heaven's Honey. And that has just been so much fun to just kind of go back and forth on what the Lord is kind of sharing with us. We kind of share some revelation and some teaching and, just doing some, individual ministry to the people that are on there. This last one I was just on, it was just amazing. And we're still getting testimonies from people that received some things on that broadcast. And that is always so exciting. And it just fills my heart with so much joy and humility that, the Lord trusts us. He trusts me to minister to his kids. And that just kind of always leaves me wrecked. Our next one is on May 16th. Normally it's a Sunday night for us here in the States. But because of schedules, it's going to be that Monday night, just so we can work with her schedule. And that would be Monday night, the 16th at 9 p.m. Eastern, which would be 10 a.m. Monday or Tuesday Australian time. It scrambles my brain all the time. But anyway, I wanted to share that. But also, I'm going to be kicking off another broadcast in addition to this one, but this one's going to be an evening one, and it's called In the Round. And I have some awesome ladies joining me to kick it off. And that is going to be Thursday, the 12th. So next Thursday. And that will be at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm going to have Debbie Kitterman and Lisa Perna and Lila Shaw. So this is going to be so much fun. So the whole premise of what the Lord is kind of been speaking to me about is how he is sending us all out into the earth, right? He's commissioning all of us. He's already commissioned us, but he's sending us out. And what I have been seeing is the Lord teaming up everybody, because, you know, we all have ministry. It doesn't have to be some formal like name or anything like that. You know, it's all of us. You know, he's teaming us all up and he's sending us out. And what I have seen just in my own personal lane, like where I'm at, is how he's bringing other people that have, you know, their ministries and what they're doing in life and all of this. And he's like kind of sewing us together. He's knitting us together because where two or more are gathered, right? And there's something really amazing in what he's doing. And so this round table discussion about real life, but we're going to put this biblical perspective. And in a sense, you know, this round table, I just kept picturing like this diamond, this round cut diamond, where every time you turn it, the different facets pick up the light, the different facets shine his glory. And I just really felt like this was a place that he is desiring to just invade, where we all come to the table with the revelation that he's giving us, with the wisdom that he's given us, with the discernment that he's giving us over our real life stuff, you know? And so there's like not going to be a single topic that is not on the table. And so this is going to be so much fun. I am so looking forward to it, because every single person that's going to help me kick this off, and all of the people that are going to come, because I have a feeling it's going to be different people as we move forward. You know, I'm just kind of like, I'm buckling up for the ride. You know, I don't even know what this is going to look like. I'm just kind of like, hey, but there's always something that I'm going to learn, and my perspective is going to broaden every time I get to listen to all of these wise people that the Lord is letting me be connected to and to bring on. And so I'm putting that out there to invite all of you, because all of you have something to share and to give with all of us, right? Like I said, it doesn't have to be a formal ministry. So if there's something that the Lord is really putting in your spirit that you would like to share, please message me, and we'll start like getting some things on the schedule, because I really feel like he's wanting to do this on a weekly basis. At first I was like, oh, maybe just do it a bi-weekly basis, but I really feel like he's moving rapidly. And so I'm like, okay, well, we'll do this on a weekly basis. And so I'm going to keep it on Thursday nights if I can, for everybody, just so there's some consistency there. And so there's the announcements. Blah. Okay, I did it. So there we go with that. So I had something else that I was going to just kind of start off with. But the Lord was just kind of like, I want you to just kind of open up about, you know, today being the National Day of Prayer. And I really just kind of sat in communion with him this morning, because without that remembrance of what he did, we wouldn't have this National Day of Prayer. And I just kind of was beginning to kind of rehash some conversations and some things that that I've had either on this broadcast or with other people, it doesn't really matter, um, about how he's really like pressing us, to shift from praying from our circumstances and beginning to pray over our circumstances, but also making sure that our praying over our circumstances is actual, intercession and not our witchcraft prayers. Because I think anytime that we step outside of praying His will to be done, we begin to pray our will be done. And the minute we start praying our will, we're outside of His. And and I know there's some caveats to that, because we do have things that are set in our heart. We do have things that are set before us that really matter, because what matters to us matters to Him. Um, but I just really felt like this is one of those things, and we're seeing a lot of things in our own personal circumstances. We're seeing a lot of things in our states, in our nations, that we really are just like warring for, and we want to see that shift, and we want to see that thing tip over. um but we have to make sure that we aren't speaking from that political mountain, and we're not speaking from that financial mountain, but that in fact we are stepping into our spirit man and having our spirit speak to that mountain in the very authority that we have been granted and commissioned in, here on this earth. As we do live here, we aren't residents of, right? We live here, but we're not a citizen of. We're a citizen and a resident of heaven. And so how we function down here is our stance and our seat up in heaven. And so that's just kind of what I wanted to kind of just preface this with. And of course, I'm seeing, everybody sharing the scripture from Second Chronicles. I love that verse. It's Second Chronicles 7:14, I think it is. But I wanted to kind of, you know when we take the scripture, and I mean, we all know what that scripture means because it is true. It's, if my people humble themselves, right? But I wanted to kind of back up just a little bit, because at the very beginning of chapter 7, it is talking about Solomon dedicating the temple that he just finished, the temple that David wanted to build, right? So, I mean, look at the lineage here. Look at this generational thing here. And so Solomon is dedicating this finished temple to house God's presence, right? Because we're Old Testament stuff, right? And so when we talk about Old Testament stuff, we need to overlay our new covenantal stance. And what we see and what we learn, we have to overlay that thing so that we can see the real truth of it and where we are in today's current environment, in our current situations, and all of those things. And the very first verse, I just love this, and this is kind of how I wanted to kind of how I wanted to kind of open this up. And it was verse 1. It says, when Solomon finished praying, day of prayer, fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices. The burnt offering and the sacrifices. And the glory of the Lord filled the temple. The priests could not enter the temple of the Lord because the glory of the Lord filled it. And I just wanted to just rest that for a moment, because we are coming together in agreement today over, sorry, that's going to bother me if it's sitting on the floor. Because as we come together today, we're all unified on this day of prayer. And I think we're unified more days than just today. And it really is that heart cry of God, like, I'm putting out my offering and my sacrifices. It's an act of obedience. Solomon built this temple, as an act of worship, but also obedience. Okay. Everything that we do is an act of worship. It's an act of obedience, but in that, it's also sacrifice. Because you've heard me say it a bazillion times, and I'll say it a bazillion times more. Our obedience will take us places that our flesh does not want to go, nor can it go. Our flesh cannot go to the places that our obedience is leading him, because our obedience will cost us something. And so we have to be willing to lay that down. And of course, when we do that, his glory comes. And so in um this focused place that all of us are here in the States. I don't know if it's a worldly day of prayer, if it's just national. I don't know. Um, but we definitely are in a place of unity. And I think that we need to just come into this place and say, first, Lord, before I beg you for your glory, I need to lay down on this altar everything that is standing in the way of your glory coming. Because as badly as I want to see it, as badly as I want to rest in the habitation of it, I know that there's something that needs to be burnt up in order for me to handle it. And even then, I don't think I can handle it. But do you know what I'm saying? Like there's something we have to lay down in order for him to come. And we are his temple. And so it's this reflective moment that he's kind of brought me into. Like I said, I was just kind of having communion with him this morning, and it was that reflective moment of like, Lord, okay, what are you asking of me right now? What do you need from me? What do I need to lay down that maybe I thought I laid down, but then I picked back up, or maybe I haven't been aware that I need to lay this down? It's going to be different for each and every one of us, but I just kind of felt this invitation to kind of place out there in order to step into this place, because the glory filled the temple here for Solomon and the priests and all of the Israelites, and then you go down, and then in my Bible, it's like titled right before verse 11, the Lord appears to Solomon. Yikes, right? Like that's like, ugh. So then it says, let me see which verse I want to start with. I'll just start with verse 12. It says, the Lord appeared to him at night and said, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself as a temple for sacrifices. When I shut up the heavens so that there is no rain, or command locusts to devour the land, or send a plague among my people. And then this is the verse we're hearing a lot today. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now my eyes will be open and my ears attentive to the prayers offered in this place. And then it goes, and I have chosen and consecrated this temple so that my name may be there forever. My eyes and my heart will always be there. And in that new covenant place, we don't step away from the need to humble ourselves and pray and seek his face and consecrate ourselves unto him, right? That humble, repentant posture that we walk through on a daily basis, not in a way of like a dog with his tail between its legs, because the Zeus like God is punishing us and bad things are happening to us and blah 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 blah. No, this is a childlike thing. This is it's, yes, I can come and sit on your lap, Daddy, but then it's also this holy reverential fear of the Lord of, you are so holy. That if I truly want your glory, I need to get rid of the things that need to be on that altar. I need to get rid of these things and place them on the altar so that I can sit at your feet and receive the very thing that you have for me in this hour. I am going to step forward in sacrificial obedience. And I kind of wanted to, in that, I wanted to kind of revisit a couple of things, not all of it, but just a couple of things that the Lord gave me over this past weekend. Um, it might be what I shared, it might not be. I don't even know. We're just gonna wing it. But I kind of felt like I needed to. I was in the book of Ruth, and I've been stuck on chapter 1. Okay, and I know the whole book and all that stuff, and that's where my pencil fell out. It was saving my place. Um, anyway, I've been stuck in Ruth chapter 1, and it's been like these little tidbits, like the Lord's just like blowing up on the page for me. And I wanted to go through a couple of things because as you read through the first few verses of chapter 1, there's some names and some situations that are put, like kind of put out here. Um, it starts off by saying, in the days when the judges ruled, right? This is when all the judges were ruling over the Israelites and all of the other people. And it was really kind of brutal, right? Um, there was a famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. Moab is our modern day Jordan. Okay. And as I was looking like for the meaning of this, because everything has meaning in the Bible, there's all these layers and all these beautiful things that we get to see and learn. Moab means a son of Lot. And when I saw that today, I was just like, whoa. Because if you remember, Lot kind of was riding on Abraham's coattails, right? When Abraham obediently left his place, and God said, pack up your stuff and leave, and I'll tell you where you're going later. Right? Lot went with him. And of course, then if you remember the story, they had disagreement, and then Lot settled in a place, that they agreed upon. One of those places ended up being Sodom and Gomorrah. And I just kind of sat there and I'm like, wow. So now we're in this place where Naomi and Ruth and Naomi's husband and Naomi's 2 sons, they were residing in this place. But Elimelech, I think that's how Elimelech. I keep going Elimelech. I don't know. It's weird. Was Naomi's husband. He was actually from Bethlehem, Judah, right? I think that's how they said it. Well, Elimelech, the name of his name means my God is king, right? And then, of course, Bethlehem is a house of bread, house of feasting, and Judah is praise. And so when you begin to like piece these things together, it begins to kind of go, wow, that, there's more there. And I'm not going to like spend a bunch of time unpacking that. But here's kind of where I wanted to go with this. So, Elimelech, Naomi's husband, dies. And then 10 years later, her 2 sons die. Her 2 sons were married to Ruth and Orpah. And so there's this grief-stricken Naomi having, to deal with this stuff, right? And in that biblical time, orphans were basically just like cast out, whether because they weren't allowed to own property, there wasn't life insurance, there was none of this stuff. And so orphans were really just kind of like left to their own devices and searching for another husband that might take them. And there's a lot more to that too, but I wanted to just kind of skim across some of this, not all of it, but some of it. And so what I really kind of just felt to share a little bit is in the midst of this grief, Naomi and now her two daughters-in-law, I don't know, even I mean, you can't even imagine like the conversations and the devastation that they must have felt, the fear they must have felt. Um, not only are they in grief because they've lost a husband 10 years prior, but now two sons and two husbands. Um, but they are also in a time of famine. And it's kind of that question of what do we do and where do we go? It was a place of uncertainty, and I have to imagine that when we get placed into this, when we're kind of shoved into a place of uncertainty, our knee jerk reaction is to go back to what we've known, right? There's some security in what we've known, there's a security in old seasons, right? The Israelites did it. We would be better off in Egypt, right? Instead of going into the wandering the desert, right? Because all that was unknown. I mean, there's so many stories in the Bible that talk about this place of where they came from and the place of where they were going. And I really feel like the Lord is highlighting this to us in this hour because we are going into unknown places. And it's not always a physical relocation. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. A lot of times it is the Lord is taking you to unknown places in the spirit, whether that be in your dreams, in the visions, in the expansion of the gifts that He's set within you, in the workplace, in relationships. There are always unknown things, and there's a point of contention that happens within us where we don't want to concede, right? We don't want to give up our stance on certain things. We don't want to step into that uncomfortable conversation or these uncomfortable places and spaces. We don't want to maybe advocate for ourselves, or we don't want to confront certain things. These are all unknown things, right? And and so what the Lord is kind of challenging us to do is to step into that place obediently. Like, I'm asking you to do this. Will you do it? And of course, our knee jerk is like, yeah, you know. But I think sometimes in our enthusiastic yes, we don't realize what it is going to cost us. And when it comes to the story of Ruth, we quote that verse, where she, I think it's, let me flip it over. I think it's in verse 16, maybe. Yeah, where Ruth is, basically like telling Naomi, like, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. I mean, we quote that in such a fluffy way sometimes, maybe not all of us all the time, but I just think sometimes we're so enthusiastic over an obedient stance that we forget that there's a cost to that obedience. There's a cost to say, where you go, I go. Where you lead, I lead. I mean, there's a cost to it. And that cost is what is known and our comforts within it. And so, we also here kind of tied into that fluffy stuff is our Boaz, like we want our Boaz. And Ruth wasn't promised Boaz, right? The only thing that was promised was a word that Naomi had heard, that there was provision, there was food in Bethlehem. And so she was basically saying, hey, I'm going to just try to, get to Bethlehem. I'm going to leave, Moab here, and I'm going to head to Bethlehem because there's promise of provision. Hi, Marilou. Hey, Karina. And that was the only promise they had. But even in that promise, it was, how are we going to gain that promise of provision? Do we just show up? I mean, I think it says that Naomi knew about Boaz, but she wasn't sure how that was all going to tie in, because now Elimelech, her husband, was now dead. How were they going to treat this widow, right? And so there was this promise, but I think instead of clinging to the promise, Naomi was just in her attempts to not be so, I mean, she was just like, I need to change my name. I'm just like blah, and she was so riddled with grief, and that's, I think, why she didn't want her daughters-in-law to come with her. She's like, I'm just going to change my name and go here and there and everywhere. Um, but she also just didn't know, but she was just going to go back to Elimelech's home and just kind of see whatever happened, right? There was just that promise of food. And then Ruth clings to her. And sometimes this revelation hit me yesterday. I'd caught a snippet of somebody else's broadcast and they were talking about Ruth, and this revelation hit me, and I just kind of typed it out, and it just kind of wrecked me because I think it's something that we all can relate to. Let me take a drink. Cheers, as Lisa says. So in this place, before they even get to Bethlehem, Naomi is talking to Ruth and Orpah. And she's basically saying, go back to your families, go back to your parents, go back to where you came from, right? Because they were Moabite women. And they will be able to do more for you than I can. And at first, Orpah, they're all weeping, they're all crying, they're all heartbroken. At first, Orpah's like, no, I won't. And then she changes her mind. And the definition of Orpah is neck or stiff-necked. And I'm just going to be vulnerable. I could totally relate to Orpah in so many places of my life where I have been stiff-necked, where I start to say, oh, I'm not going to go back. I'm just going to come with you. In that sense, like, okay, Lord, take me where you want me to go. And yet I'm stiff-necked about it, and I change my mind. And in this place of, yes, I want to be obedient, but I don't want to lose my comforts. Yes, I want to go, but I don't want to know. I don't want to go into the unknown. I would rather stay in what is familiar. I would rather be a big fish in a small pond than be at the bottom of the food chain in the ocean. I think we have that perspective and that stance sometimes where, nothing can touch me, nothing can hurt me if I'm that big fish in that small pond of familiarity. And it might not even be the place that you're called, but you're comfortable there. And God will let you stay there because he won't intrude on your free will. But in this thing, I'm reading this, and I'm just going to read it because it's better than my Cliff's Notes interpretation sometimes. So Naomi says, okay, this is in Ruth chapter 1, verse 11. Naomi said, return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Right? And she's like, I'm not going to have any more sons. I'm old. She sees the impossibility in her grief. And she's saying, I can't do anything for you. And so she says, it's more bitter for me than for you because the Lord's hand has gone out against me. And I think, sometimes how many times have we been in situations and circumstances where we're grieving and we're like, Lord, like, where are you in this? Like, where is your hand in this? I don't understand this. I don't see you. I don't feel you. I just don't get it. Where are you? And I don't want anybody around me because it just I seem to be this magnet for the negative. I seem to be a magnet of all these bad things, and I have nothing to give other people. Been there, said that multiple times, more than I'd like to admit. It's okay. There's redemption here, okay? So as she says this, as Naomi says this, she and her daughters-in-law, they wept again. And this is where it talks about Orpah has changed her mind, okay? Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. I'm going to start getting wrecked. Sorry. How many times have we been, how do I want to word this? Okay. So let me go back to this. The revelation that hit me yesterday as I was reading through this again, when it says, then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. I immediately overlaid the Last Supper, how Judas kissed Jesus, but John laid his head on Jesus's chest. Completely left me undone. Now, Orpah's kiss was not a kiss of betrayal, but it was a kiss goodbye. And Judas's kiss was a kiss goodbye in a sense. And I got to thinking, how many times have I been that stiff-necked Orpah where I have kissed promises goodbye because I didn't want to leave that place of familiarity and certainty and comfort. How many times have I refused to cling to the unknown, to cling to the very thing that God promised, and not necessarily suffocating and clinging tightly to the actual promise, but to the one who spoke it. And I just began to get convicted all over again. And it's not a bad thing in this season because, I've said it multiple times. The Lord is shaking each and every one of us to remove our Orpah stances on things, our stiff-necked betrayals into our obedience. We're betraying our own obedience when we refuse to step into it. And so there's this place that God has us. We've talked about this before, about this posture of repentance, that where God is getting rid of our Orpahs. He's getting rid of our Orpah perspectives where we would rather kiss something goodbye than to cling to it and go into the unknown. You see, when Ruth and Naomi got to Bethlehem, Ruth just went out to glean the scraps out of the field, and that was their promised provision. And I've said this before, picking up scraps covered in dirt doesn't sound like God-given provision to me. But it was the path to the blessing. It was the path to a bigger promise that they did not know. It was the path in the unknown. And I think sometimes we're whining about the scraps in the field because it doesn't look or feel like God's provision, when in fact it was, and it is. And so I just kind of sat there yesterday. I'm like, God, forgive me. Forgive me for being Orpah and kissing all of these things, goodbye, because I would rather stay or go back to what I know. That was a tough one, right? And I think we have to be willing to admit that to ourselves and about ourselves if we really want to move forward and grab a hold of that Boaz. It might be a relationship. It might be a deepened provision that you've been waiting for. It might, I mean, whatever it is that Boaz represents, it is a promise that God is giving you. See, Boaz was the kinsman redeemer, the debt forgiver, the provider. He's a foreshadowing of Jesus. And Ruth, in her humble gleaning, caught the eye of this kinsman redeemer. And in that place of contentment of the provision that she was gleaning out of that dirty field, there's this time that passes. They were eating in a time of famine because the provision was there. That promise was seen. Was it magnificent? Was it huge? Was she owning the field? No. And then later on, it's later on in chapter 2 or chapter 3, I can't remember which. There's a period of time that has passed. She's been invited by Boaz, to like hang with his girls, his servant girls. And then he tells his field workers to give her extra. All these little favorable extra provisions that are given to her along the way. See, sometimes I think we want things so instantaneously. We want our promise to just come in just one big plop into our lap or into our bank account or into this relationship or this circumstances or this job. And God is a God of suddenly. But sometimes his heavenly suddenly looks like an earthly process. Not sometimes, most of the time. His suddenly looks like an earthly process. Either, beforehand or during. So we need to kind of get out of our microwave American rip and tip perspective and mindset. But in this process, his favor began to increase over Ruth. And as we continue to submit ourselves to the process of our field gleaning, we begin to see the increase of his favor over us as he sees our not just our obedience, but our gratitude over what he is putting our hands to in the moment. Thank you, Lord, for this pen. I'm going to use it until all the ink is gone. And then as I continue to process through my obedience of writing, I'm totally prophesying to myself right now, and because this has been a struggle. Here comes another pen that's full of ink before this one's even gone. An increase. And then here comes another one. And then here comes another one before this one's even gone. That's how God's provision works more times than not. Can I just say that? And in that process of these little blips of favor that Ruth had with Boaz, she still wasn't pursuing things in an aggressive way, right? She was serving. And then comes this instruction from her mother-in-law. Pay attention to what Boaz is doing. And then when he goes to rest, go lay at his feet. There is something very humbling and scary about going and laying at his feet. Ruth was kind of freaking out, if I remember reading it correctly. She was like, "Are you serious right now?" I'm going to do it because my mother-in-law requested me to. But what's he going to say? What's he going to do? And what did Naomi say? I'm going to flip over to it. She says, "That man is our close relative. He is one of our kinsmen redeemers." Naomi said to Ruth, "It will be good for you to go with his girls because in someone else's field you might be harmed." Um, Hold on, let me find that verse really quick. So in all of this favor, Naomi begins to see this favor over Ruth, and she begins to be like, "You know what, Ruth, you've been taking care of me. Hey, Steph. Hi, Linda." She sees how Ruth has been taking care of her. And Naomi is like, "I really want to take care of my daughter-in-law." So she's like, "I need to find somebody for you." So then here's the instruction. It's in chapter 3. She says, "Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor." On the threshing floor. That's not a pretty place. That's not a fun place. Can I just say that? We need to be on the threshing floor. Wash and perfume yourself. Put on your best clothes. Oh, there's so much in this. There's so much in this. Then go down to the threshing floor. I can't talk. But don't let him know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do. Our obedience will always land us not necessarily at the feet of our promise, but at the feet of our King. And, and this goes on. I mean, and go and read the book of Ruth. There's so much in there that he is speaking to us right now. And I kind of, cheekily was sharing over the weekend about what kind of as you find in that comfortable place and in that familiar place that we tend to want to reside in instead of that Boaz, right, being our promise. You end up partnering up and coming into an agreement with frustrated as, disappointed as. If your Boaz is finances, if you stay in that familiar place, you're just going to be dealing with broke as, and lack of provision as. If your promise is healing, and you stay in that place of comfort and you don't step into that place of obedience, you're going to be sick as, there's just all of these things that in that place of familiarity, it was a season for a time and a purpose and a reason. But when the Lord is telling you to move out, if you remain there, it will be the very opposite of the promise. And then we wonder why we feel defeated as all get out in these seasons when we have refused to step in obedience into the next moment, the next, this next instruction. Sometimes it's not even stepping from one season to the next. It's just being obedient in our current season that is slowly trickling this out. If you remember the story of Elisha, when he gets commissioned by Elijah, Elisha was in the field plowing. Elijah came and anointed him to be prophet, farmer to prophet. I mean, come on, just to sum it up. And Elisha, tells Elijah, "Let me say goodbye. I'm coming, but let me close out this thing. Let me close out this season." God lets us do that, right? He helps us do that. And Elisha creates a place of impossibility to return to. He knew that when he stepped out of that field to follow Elijah, he was stepping into an apprenticeship of being a prophet into the very calling he was made to. And he's saying, "You know what? I'm going to destroy the very thing that I might come back to, because this is what I know. I know how to plow a field. I know how to farm this land. And if this new thing gets scary, I might want to come back to the old." And Elisha knew that about himself. And he says, "Give me 1 minute, Elijah. I'm going to go. I'm going to completely break apart the plowing equipment. I'm going to set fire to it. I'm going to slaughter the oxen, and I'm going to take the meat from that oxen, and I'm going to feed the people that were in this season with me, that were in this field with me. I'm going to feast with them, but I'm also saying goodbye to that old place. I cannot and I will not return to it." And then he steps out of that field into the unknown. He knew he was being called to something more, but until Elijah showed up on the field and mantled him, he didn't know when or what that was going to be. So he stepped out into the unknown. He didn't know. I mean, it could have been a whole new field that Elijah was like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I just wanted your farming expertise." He didn't know, but he knew it was from God. He knew it was from God, and that was all he needed to step out. Ruth clung to her mother-in-law. "I can't go back to my family. I can't go back to the old land," because in the time that she lived with and knew Naomi, her God became her God. There was something different. There was something more powerful about what was on Naomi than Ruth ever experienced in her old life, that she ever experienced with her old family. Because you remember, Ruth was a Moabite. She was a Moabite. She was not an Israelite. She knew she was grafted in. She was adopted in. We have all been grafted and adopted in. Remember, Old Testament, we got to overlay New Covenant. So when we read this story, we see the powerful perspective of things as we read it, but we overlay that New Covenant. We have been grafted in. God, there is so much more of you in this next step, in this next season, in this promise. Hey, Greg, I need to cling to you to bring me into that place. And I don't know what that looks like, but I'm going to cling and I'm going to go. Whatever it costs me, I'm going to go. And I'm going to see every ounce of your provision along the way. If it's picking up grains of wheat out of the dirt and dusting it off, I'm going to see that and I'm going to be grateful for it because it's your provision in a season of famine. There's so much to be pulled out of this, and I shared, like I said, I shared a chunk of this over this past weekend, and just was getting hit with more of it yesterday, and more today. Yeah, Greg, I'm a clinger. I'm a clinger. I refuse to be Orpah ever again. I refuse to be the stiff-necked kisser goodbye. I will not kiss anything goodbye that God is leading me into ever again. I'm not going to be stiff-necked about what God is asking me to step into. I mean, we've all said it, like God has brought me too far to go back now. He has brought me too far to stay where I am. I want to just speak and pray like this holy discontentment over where we are. I don't ever want to be content with staying where I'm at. Do I find contentment in God in the place that He has me? Absolutely. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm content in every season, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful. Every season that God has me in, I'm content because I know it's where He has me, but I don't want to stay there. And so I just want to pray that over all of us. Like, Lord, I want to be where you have me, but I don't want to stay in the place where you aren't, like if you're leading me somewhere else, I don't want to stay. I want to keep clinging. I want to keep following no matter the cost, no matter the cost. And that is not a fluffy feel good statement. I say that with holy fear and trembling because I know it's going to cost something. Our obedience into the unknown, we weren't called to be comfortable. We weren't called to rest in the penthouse of this earth. We were called to go against the grain. We were called to be Jesus in the midst of it all. And in all of this shaking, I have heard more people just basically saying, pass this cup from me. I don't want it. And that just leaves my heart shattered. Because I've been there. I still struggle with it. And can I just dispel the myth that we reach pinnacles of achieving things? I'm always going to struggle with obedient steps into the unknown. I'm always going to struggle with my gratitude of his provision because our fleshly eyes look at all the dirt we're trying to have to wipe off the grains that we're picking up out of the ground, saying, Lord, I see your provision, but it's not enough. I need more. I mean, really, we're always going to struggle. But Ruth wasn't alone. Naomi wasn't alone. And the eyes of the king were on her. The favor of God was on her. The favor of God followed Joseph in the pit, on the slave block, and in the prison before he even landed in the palace. Can we just remember that sometimes? It wasn't easy for Joseph. He didn't, he didn't just fly through this without struggle. He had favor in Potiphar's house, but Potiphar didn't have his back. He had favor only because Potiphar could see how much he could benefit off of Joseph's favor. But the minute the wife was going nuts, Joseph was like, I'm out. It still landed him in prison. So Potiphar didn't love him that much. Potiphar didn't have his back. I just think there's this place that God is really, I feel that God is bringing us to just let him show us what we need to see in this hour. Because there's a whole lot of stuff going on. And a whole lot of that stuff going on is that first step of our obedience is to letting him come and shake all that can be shaken. And like I've said at the beginning, we've really allowed him to shake us, and he's brought us, I'm not even on my knees anymore. I'm just on my face. I'm just being real. This place of obedience of like, oh God, okay, that's got to go. That's got to go. That's got to go. It's got to go. It's got to go. To where you just feel so raw and vulnerable to everything going on in this world. But we have to be there because what he is bringing to us, he's filling in all of these places that he's kind of cutting out and cutting away and we're letting go of. He's filling it in with what he has for us for this hour because we've all been called to this hour. And what he's filling in is going to allow us to stand in this massive shaking that we're seeing in and around us in our nations and in this earth, because we have to be a people who are unshakable. And when they see the favor of God upon us, when they look at us, they're going to see us at the feet of our Redeemer. And they're going to want to be there too, because as we've gleaned that field, we also become an owner of it. Can I say that? And it's not in this materialistic bull crap that we tend to default to. There's something bigger, there's something deeper that he's leading us into, a broader perspective. This rise and this fall of the nations that we are going to see in this earth, it begins with us. This was that last broadcast that me first. I meant it when I said it. I know I skipped last week, but the week before. So now we're in this 2 weeks. I meant it when I said it. Me first, Lord. Shake me first. If I want to be an agent of change in the nations, you have to shake me first. We have to get rid of everything that is within me that is not of you. We have to get everything that was within me that is asking you to bend into my will instead of me bending into yours. I need to have your eyes, Lord, not mine. Your will, Lord, not mine. I meant it when I said it. It's not a fluffy feel-good prayer, guys. We are so beyond that. Forget the cotton candy. We need the meat. We're asking for his glory, but it's going to cost us something to carry it. If we want to carry it, it's going to cost us. Because if we're not willing to obediently lay down our familiar places, we will crumble under the weight of it. We cannot change anything until we willingly humble ourselves to change ourselves. Let him change us. So back to that 2 Chronicles verse that we are quoting on this National Day of Prayer. Humble ourselves. Seek his face so that his glory can come. But that humbling ourselves and our seeking our face is stepping out of those familiar places and letting him show us what needs to go instead of us just assuming what it is. And that's a tough thing to say, again, because we know it's going to cost. So it's being willing to pay the price. Whew. Okay, I'm going to wrap that up right there because I've already gone a couple of minutes over an hour, and I want to honor your time, respect your time, because it is kind of in the middle of everybody's day. Oh yeah, James, that's okay. Darn work getting in our way, huh? But yeah, it's on YouTube and it'll be on Facebook, and DLive, I think, lets you replay it for just a short while. And then I will have it on my website as well. So anyway, I'm going to let that go. And yeah, so I thank you, Lord, for this time. I thank you for the revelation that you are bringing us so that we are now fully aware of things that maybe we weren't aware of before. That we begin to ask you, what are those orpas in our lives? Where are those places that we have been stiff-necked? Where are those places that we have kissed things goodbye instead of clinging to you? Where are the places that we have kissed in places of that kiss of betrayal? And instead of laying our head on your chest, Lord, like bring those things to the surface because we don't want to carry them forward, Lord. And we know it's going to cost us. And so if you don't mean it yet, don't pray it. Because what we speak has weight and it has authority. So Lord, as we step into this day of prayer, I mean, we have a daily prayer. We have our days of prayer. But today, as we are unified as a nation, that we come together and we remember our words and that we begin to just pray your will to be done and that we don't assume what that is, Lord. That we stop praying those witchcraft prayers and we begin to just speak in the spirit to those mountains of influence, that your will be done here on earth as it already is in heaven, and that we become the establishment of that you give us the instructions to step forward. and give us the strength to stop praying and prophesying out of our circumstances or out of a political spirit, that we step out beyond that in the spirit and we begin to prophesy and pray and speak to those very things with the authority that you've given us. Lord, I just ask that you continue to be with us this day and in the days to come, that you continue to deal with us as we step into your unknown. Continue to guide us, hold us as we cling to you. I just thank you and I praise you, Lord, for this day and all of the days to come that you bless us and commission us to step into. I just ask that you bless my friends as they go throughout their day, that you give them encounters, not just with you, but opportunities to be encounters of you with other people. In Jesus' name, I pray and ask these things. Amen. All right. I love you guys. I bless you. And I will see you next week. It'll be twice next week. It'll be second breakfast here in the morning, and then at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock Eastern time for our first episode of In the Round. All right. Love you guys. And I will see you soon. Actually, I'll be on Lisa's Crown Chats tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern time in the morning. Tomorrow, Crown Chats. All right. Love you guys. God bless you.